Clashes erupt in Venezuela as the opposition leader calls for an uprising to oust President Nicolas Maduro. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, April 30th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. The political unrest in Venezuela deteriorated further on Tuesday as opposition leader Juan Guaido stepped up moves to gain control of the government. Guaido took to the streets to call for a military uprising in his latest attempt to force President Nicolas Maduro from office. Violence erupted on the streets of the capital, Caracas, in what observers say was the most serious challenge to date to Maduro's rule. The protest, dubbed Operation Freedom, started with a video early Tuesday of Guaido flanked by a group of heavily armed National Guardsmen. Small groups of protesters set up blockades of debris at several downtown intersections about 10 blocks from the presidential palace. But police in riot gear moved in quickly to clear the roads, and the majority of shops and businesses were closed and the streets of Caracas were quiet. Guaido said he called for the uprising to restore the country's constitutional order, which he says was broken when Maduro was sworn in as president earlier this year for a second term in office. He'd been promising a final push against Maduro for weeks to coincide with planned protests on Wednesday. CARICOM has taken a position of a non-interference on the Venezuela situation and are supporting mediation efforts to bring a peaceful resolution to the ongoing conflict. News now coming to hand is that CARICOM has issued a statement on the matter, and we join CMC's Peter Richards with that. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening. Good evening to you, Dawn, and good evening to viewers. As you rightly indicated, CARICOM has just issued a statement on the unfolding situation in the South American country. The CARICOM chairman and St. Kitts Nevis Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, in a statement said that the region had been apprised of the situation in Venezuela, which he said appears to be nearing a boiling point. He said that he spent most of the day in consultation with other CARICOM leaders and also kept in close contact with the CARICOM Secretary General, Erwin LaRocque. The Secretary General has been updating the chairman on the emerging developments in Venezuela. According to the CARICOM chairman, I appeal for peace and calm, while reiterating that CARICOM will continue to make every effort to bring a peaceful resolution to Venezuela's political crisis. He said, and I quote, "My colleague heads of government and I are collectively charged with ensuring the continued security and stability of our beloved Caribbean region," adding, "This responsibility is our first and foremost priority as we work in unison to safeguard our people's future." Dr. Harris said, CARICOM has been working earnestly to promote meaningful dialogue and diplomacy, as well as a four-phase process called the Montevideo Mechanism, whose aim is an inclusive and lasting solution. He said such a consideration approach can only rebound to the benefit of the people and country of Venezuela, and by extension, the countries and citizens of Latin America and the Caribbean. In his capacity as CARICOM chairman, Prime Minister Harris has attended several meetings on Venezuela's political crisis. These meetings have taken him to Guyana, the United Nations, Uruguay, and Ecuador. He is scheduled to engage in the follow-up high-level talks with the International Contact Group on Venezuela in Costa Rica next week. Peter Richards, CMC News.
Thank you, Peter. In other news, Liat shareholder governments have agreed in principle to a proposal on how to finance the cash-strapped airline to keep it in the air. St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves told CMC News on Tuesday evening that one of the major items discussed was avoiding a sale of 3 of Liat's planes, which had been proposed. Gonsalves had previously said that the shareholders, Antigua and Barbados, Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, might have had to ask the Caribbean Development Bank that provided the funds to purchase the planes to sell them. But that appears to be off the table. Gonsalves says that the proposal will be further discussed in May when the shareholders meet again.
Antigua and Barbuda submitted a proposal, and that proposal is gathering support by most shareholders, at least thus far, and others would like to see it submitted in writing for full consideration. What it would mean in effect is that these 2 planes will not be sold. There would be additional resources put in without selling these planes.
Prime Minister Gonzalez was speaking after the shareholders meeting in Antigua, and ahead of that meeting, the Vincentian leader said the carrier might have been forced to close operations after Caribbean governments appeared reluctant to provide the necessary cash injections to keep the airline flying. On the heels of that warning, St. Lucia's Prime Minister Alain Chastanet reiterated that his government would not be putting any money into the airline unless there were fundamental changes to how it is governed. He'd even gone as far as suggesting that Liat could easily be replaced if it folded. And the St. Lucian leader has come in for some criticism from Prime Minister Gonzalez.
Well, there's only one Prime Minister in the OECS who is not putting any money. Is Prime Minister Chastanet of St. Lucia. Keith Mitchell has put from Grenada $1 million. Now St. Kitts and Nevis has indicated that they're putting their cabinet has taken a decision. And the other 3 shareholders in the OECS, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines have put money. So it's only the odd man out in the OECS is Prime Minister Chastanet of St. Lucia in regards to Liat.
Well, as mentioned by Prime Minister Gonzalez, the St. Kitts and Nevis government is putting some money into Liat. It announced Tuesday that it would provide $1 million EC in emergency funding. The Timothy Harris administration said in a statement on Tuesday that the decision followed a presentation by a Liat delegation last month and the establishment of an advisory committee to review the proposals and make recommendations. The government has also agreed in principle with the idea of participating in a minimum revenue guarantee arrangement on the basis of further discussions and negotiations with high-level representatives of Liat. And Liat's CEO, Julie Reefer-Jones, says discussions on that MRG arrangement are ongoing.
There are ongoing discussions with governments about the Liat network and about the need for the territories served by Liat to contribute through a minimum revenue guarantee model. The pace of these discussions has been slower than we anticipated, but the company remains optimistic that the discussions will be concluded shortly.
Reefer-Jones made the comments as she sought to give the assurance that despite Liat's financial problems, it is committed to continue flying travelers throughout its network of 15 destinations. The Jamaica government on Tuesday declared a new state of emergency in 3 western parishes, St. James, Westmoreland and Hanover. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement during a media briefing at Jamaica House. He said the decision was based on a request from the security forces. In January, the government lifted a year-long state of emergency in St. James, and this latest state of emergency will be in effect for the next 14 days and, if necessary, will be extended for up to 3 months by a 2/3 majority of both houses of Parliament.
After careful consideration and review of the crime statistics, in particular violent crimes, which have been committed in some western parishes, the security forces have advised that the situation now currently exists would warrant the government advising the Governor General to proclaim a state of public emergency. His Excellency the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Linton Allen has declared that a state of public emergency exists in the community of the entire area comprising the parishes of St. James, Hanover, and Westmoreland.
Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson said Westmoreland is leading the 3 parishes in terms of murder rate and was projected to record 90 killings by the end of the year without appropriate interventions. Well, after the state of emergency announcement, Opposition Leader Dr. Peter Phillips called on the government to outline a long-term anti-crime measure to deal with the crime situation. He said the fact that after more than a year after the state of emergency in St. James, there is a resurgence of criminal activity underscores that a state of emergency without other anti-crime measures that single out and target the producers and perpetrators of violence and bring them to justice will not provide the level of security that the country deserves. The opposition leader also called for accompanying regulations along with the appropriate tribunal to ensure the rights of people are protected under the state of emergency. Staying in Jamaica, the police high command is facing some questions after one of the suspended officers held in a murder, high-speed chase and shootout escaped custody. The officer, Corporal Kirk Frazier, had been arrested after the vehicle that he and two other suspended cops were in crashed into another car. A civilian who had nothing to do with the incident was also killed, and his relatives are demanding answers. TVJ's Herman Green reports.
Questions are bound for the police high command as an already bad situation continues to get worse. It comes as 3 suspended JCF officers have been implicated in a fatal shooting at Chedwin Park on Old Harbour Road, St. Catherine on Sunday. They were challenged by an off-duty policeman who engaged them in a high-speed chase and shootout along Old Harbour Road. The vehicle in which the suspended cops were traveling crashed into another vehicle at the stoplight at the intersection of Brunswick Avenue and Job Lane in Spanish Town. One died at the scene, the second ran away, and the third was taken into police custody. However, TVJ News understands that the suspended cop who was reportedly taken into custody did not turn up at hospital and is not in custody. The Independent Commission of Investigations, INDICOM, has now launched a major investigation questioning all aspects of the incident, including
how it is that Officer Kirk Fraser is now at large, because he was held on the scene and he was put in the charge of an officer to be taken to hospital, but he was never admitted at hospital, and we are inquiring as to what happened, why he cannot now be accounted for. We intend to question all officers who were responsible for moving the injured and other persons from the scene to the hospital.
INDICOM and the police high command are also probing the circumstances which led to a civilian, Kevron Burrell, who was driving the vehicle which the suspended cops crashed into, being shot and killed. It's understood that Kevron Burrell lives overseas, but was back in Jamaica for a funeral. He was reportedly on his way to the wake in St. Elizabeth Saturday night and had nothing to do with the incident.
Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, the Guyana government defends the Parliament's decision to pay tribute to a former parliamentarian who was convicted of terrorism in the U.S. Stay with us.
The Ministry of National Security is placing Tobago as a priority and tightening its borders. This as 2 refurbished interceptors were distributed to the Tobago Coast Guard to patrol the northern and western ends of the island. One would be stationed in Charlottesville and the other in Scarborough.
So we've refurbished the first 2 of those 14 interceptors, and we took a strategic decision that those first 2 would be stationed in Tobago.
Bad. Fire one bad attacking, and I tell us that 300K, that's a pocket money. Need a money counter for count my money. IQ Music, so you know the real name on the bird paper, QN Campbell, understand? Spanish Town, born at Tom Supen, Pura Winterspen, reside in Angels right now, understand? Been to schools, Green Basic School, Christian Primary, then Ozemart Technical High School, you know, from there we decide to say, alright.
The Guyana government has defended the decision of the National Assembly to pass a resolution paying tribute to former legislator Abdul Qadir, who died in a U.S. prison after he was convicted on terrorism-related charges there. The U.S. Embassy and the main opposition People's Progressive Party had criticized the decision, but in a statement on Monday, the government said the National Assembly was only following a time-honored convention of observing the work of former members who are deceased. It said, quote, "The government of Guyana asserts that it had no intention of conveying the impression that the motion was designed to honor a former MP convicted of terrorism in another jurisdiction. The motion recognizes the member's service as a parliamentarian," end quote. Prison officers in Bermuda are on an indefinite work-to-rule to protest working conditions and other outstanding issues. They started the lockdown since last Friday after a group of inmates attacked 3 officers. As a result of the officers' protest, only a skeleton staff was operating at the Westgate Correctional Facility. National Security Minister Wayne Kane said plans have been put in place to deal with the work-to-rule. Ahead in Newsline Sport, Indian tycoon Vijay Mallya loses ownership of the Barbados Tridents. The details after the break.
Maybe a spot down here. Let me just look to see what it's down here. Let me just see. Oh, they're swimming down there. That's no good. My first critique is there's no place to fish. You gotta fish for a fishing spot. My second critique is there's a lot of canoes, kayakers, snorkelers.
This location is really cool. Don't get me wrong. Girls in bikinis and canoes and boards, that's summer to me, baby. But it's for fishing. Yeah, that's not going to happen here.
Can't get over how clear it is, man.
I feel I definitely understand where you're coming from with the prescription portion of things. I think that's something that would be modified if this would come about, because it's understandable if something is prescribed to you for health reasons. And that's the same thing with how today marijuana has come to what it is today. A lot of people had medical issues, and that's when you would get a slide or a pass on that. They would understand that, okay, you have a medical circumstance.
What were those proper police procedures? Because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, what would I do in this situation where I had an unmarked police car? I don't know their comps. They haven't identified their comps.
Okay, there's 2 issues here. A, with the undercover. The undercover has what's called a red bubble light. And this is a light that they can either put on the roof or on the dashboard.
We see it on TV all the time.
Exactly. So they could have done that. They did not do that.
Why didn't they?
Organizers for the upcoming Caribbean Premier League CPL say embattled Indian tycoon Vijay Mallya will no longer have ownership of the Barbados Tridents. At a press conference in Barbados on Tuesday, CPL Chief Executive Damien O'Donoghue said the league was in the process of wrapping up discussions with the relevant parties and new owners should be in place before the players' draft scheduled for May 22nd in London. Mallya is currently fighting extradition from the United Kingdom to his native India, where he is wanted by authorities on alleged bank fraud and money laundering charges amounting to nearly $1 billion. His mounting legal and financial woes have also impacted the franchise, with players yet to be paid in full for the 2018 season, which wrapped up last September. The 63-year-old Mallya secured ownership of the Tridents in 2016. The same year, he fled India to avoid attempts by authorities to recover millions in unpaid bank loans. He's since been holed up at a mansion in East England. Tridents players also suffered non-payment issues following the 2017 season and were only paid fully just ahead of the 2018 draft. CPL Chief Operating Officer Pete Russell expressed gratitude to all affected players for their professionalism and assured the non-payment of salaries would be resolved shortly. Guyanese batsman Bhaskar Yadram says he is eager to make his presence felt when he suits up for the Windward Islands Volcanoes in this year's Professional Cricket League, the PCL. The 19-year-old was drafted to the team last Friday, and although he's no stranger to first-class cricket, he says playing in the PCL will be new territory for him. Newsroom's Akeem Green reports.
right-handed batsman has played 2 first-class matches for the Guyana Jaguars in the 2017-2018 season and produced a top score of 25. Despite not being active regionally of recent, Yadaram is a part of Cricket Guyana Academy and a regular face in the local franchise league. The player draft occurred at CWI's corporate headquarters in Antigua Friday, and the news was most shocking and delightful.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Almighty for giving me an opportunity, and thank the Windwards Volcanoes for picking me. They have faith in me, and the news to me was a surprise. I was just looking forward for the opportunity to go out and back myself and play good cricket. I've learned a lot being a part of the academy, and the 2 matches that I played, I gained a lot. I know that first class is not like ordinary club cricket and things. It is a tougher league, and you just got to occupy yourself and just wait on the bad balls to score off of. Then back in nets, I just go out and look to stroke the ball mostly, because normally I used to hit the ball a lot in the ear, and in my bowling, I just look to hit areas, and I'm working on my run-up so I could generate faster pace.
Yadaram, who shot the headline since his days of captain in Guyana on the 15 level, comes from a long line of cricket enthusiasts. Most of his immediate family, brother Kavish and sister Kavita, are both national cricketers. How will a young man survive an entire season without his major support base, his family? He had this to say.
I just have to look and see how it will go the first 2 months or 3 months, because I'm normally a family guy, just being around family most of the times, and they back me to my strength and ability. So just looking to see what's going to happen, and don't think it will affect my performance.
Will you take the offer to them to help them maybe want and win this next PCL?
Well, I think a good all-rounder. Just look to do the basics and get everything right. And I should strengthen the batting a bit, and look to chip in the bowling, just hit the areas and get fast wickets for them.
With sporting developments in Guyana, poor decisions accounted for the country's rugby team missing out on winning the Rugby North America's South Zone 15's title. They went down to Guadeloupe 519 in the finals at the National Park in Guyana last week. We get the details in this report.
Guyana had 1 try in the entire 80 minutes. There were some occasions in the second half they sprung some rousing plays that hinted a comeback was possible. It quickly faded with a well-coordinated backline by the Frenchmen. On the cusp of halftime was where the Guyanese faded and the visitors scored 2 tries and made the conversions. 0-14 to the first half. O'Neill Mackenzie came off the bench and scored for Guyana in the second half, making it 5-19 with 8 minutes to go. But Lance Adonis missed the conversion. Guyana made some runs towards the try line, but tired legs took a toll. They seemed to realize the inevitable by then. Should Guyana have won, they would have played Bermuda for the overall run title in May and a chance to return to the America's Challenge Series. Now, both coach and captain reflected on where it went wrong.
It basically came down to poor decisions. We had umpteen opportunities to score, and we just let it fly. I don't think it was, we had everything on key. You understand? It's just the decision making. It's just as simple decision making, because we had umpteen tries to score, and at the end we take it all up into the field and we just bumble it at the end of it. For some reason or the other, the guys just lose the focus at the time. I don't know if it's rushing it too much or what, but we got to regroup and go again.
We need to be a bit more adaptable, and we need to be very much more stronger, united as a team. In a game of 15, sometimes the ball just doesn't go to the wing. Sometimes it's just hard to get it out to the wing. But sometimes there were opportunities that we missed to exploit the wings. But that's how 15s go. Sometimes the wingers go a game without the ball. They just have to clear rocks and make tackles. But that's how it goes.
Switching sports and going to the horse racing track now, 2 Barbadians, veteran rider Quincy Welch and rookie Demario Bino, rode braces to christen the new Century Mile racetrack on Sunday. The 38-year-old Welch, a repeat champion at the recently closed Northlands Park, captured race 3 over 5 furlongs with 11 two-choice Casa de Plata before returning to take race 5 over the same distance with 2-1 bet Heartless Sophia. Bino won race 6, also over 5 furlongs with I Tricked My Ride, before capturing race 9 in another 5 furlong sprint with another favorite, A Little Bit a little bit cocky. The 9-race card marked the curtain raiser for the new facility, which replaces the Northlands Park venue that closed last October. And Jamaican Rajiv Muraj will carry the hopes of the Caribbean when he mounts up in Saturday's 145th running of the prestigious Kentucky Derby. The 33-year-old will partner with 3-year-old colt High Cal, which has won twice in 3 starts this year, including Muraj's stake debut last February. The pair, which also finished 3rd in the Grade 2 Wood Memorial earlier this month, has attracted early odds of 30-1 for the 1.25-mile trip at historic Churchill Downs. Muraj last rode in the Derby 2 years ago when he finished 10th with 6-1 choice Irish War Cry. He will enter this year's event with some stakes under his belt following his capture of the $200,000 Red Stallion Stakes at Aqueduct 2 weeks ago. And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
I know you stay in your community and you show your community love.
Most definitely.
And there's another rap artist who said that it's crazy and sad that people outside of your community, they show you more love than people that are in your community.
Right.
I know Miami, we show you some love.
Oh, no, my city show love, you know, regardless of what anything goes down, any comment. One thing, if I go to a show, I guarantee you I'm going to rock out harder than anyone that's around right now.
Yeah.
That's how I move.
Bill Walton is a little bit involved, I think. What's his role there at the company?
So Bill Walton is a major contributor to our community. He's our executive chairman at San Diego Sport Innovators. He comes to our leadership dinners. He comes to our board meetings. He makes introductions. Having Bill Walton as part of this organization has given us tremendous credibility to attract other people into the organization.
Again, the major developments of this day. Street clashes erupt in Venezuela as the opposition leader calls for an uprising to oust President Nicolas Maduro, and CARICOM appeals for calm. And in sport, Indian business tycoon Vijay Mallya loses ownership of CPL franchise Barbados Tridents. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, subscribe to CanonNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here on Thursday. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.